Razer's been releasing some pretty interesting products lately, and the new Razer Clio goes right in line with them. That's this contraption right here, a gaming chair speaker pillow. Let's go and take a look over this thing. Number one, as it being a pillow. Over here on the sides, these are actually going to be your speakers. So those are hard to touch. The middle bit is your pillow. So looking at right there, that whole bit of cloth is actually going to be your plushness. Once you get down to here, that is where it gets hard. And throughout the entire bit, that's pretty much the same type of plushness all the way around the side here. And it's plenty plush. Now this Razer logo in the middle is kind of like, I don't know, that raised plastic paint type stuff there, but you don't feel it when it's resting on your head. So looking on the back side here, you're going to actually see those speakers. And luckily they are kind of like that silicone rubber bit. So if you accidentally grab it or press it there, they're not going to rip, as they're not those little plastic or paper type of drivers. So really don't have to worry about those. Maybe if you got kids and pets kind of jabbing at them, that might be an issue since they are exposed. But as basic use, I think you're perfectly fine. As you've seen over here, you have your USB port for charging, which you get up to 14 hours of battery life on this. Here are your straps for connecting it, which I'm going to show you here in a second. And then up on the top of the device, this is where all your buttons are. So you got volume up, down, you get your power button, EQ, as you have like movies, music, and games, that's some preset EQs there. And then you have your source picker, which you have Bluetooth on this, and then you can also run it 2.4. Now let's go and talk about the installation process of the Razer Clio, which is pretty much straightforward. As you see, you got these two straps right on the back here, which are incredibly solid. Like, I don't get worried about it one bit here, but you can see they're also adjustable right there. Both straps are adjustable, and they got a little plastic clip right up top here, so you can undo or do them if you want. I never really catch myself having to do that, but I want to show you the installation process like in my personal use here. So I'll take the bottom strap, put it right over my chair there, and you can see it's right up towards the top. I'm not even using the second strap. I'll just fling it over the backside, and now the pillow or speaker is just right above these little shoulder rests there. My shoulders aren't hitting these, which I'll show you in a second. My head is sitting right there. But say if you're a little bit shorter, what you can do is take, say, just a top strap and do the same thing we did with the bottom strap. Just go with one strap there, and now you can see the pillow is actually down towards those shoulder rests there. So now when I'm sitting in the chair, you can see it's pretty much perfectly positioned for me. The speakers are kind of right here in line with my ears, maybe a pinch lower, but the sides are not hitting my shoulders whatsoever. It's pretty much right there. My head's resting right on the back of the pillow. The one issue I have is the unit sticks out a little bit too far from me. So when I sit back, it's almost jabbing me right here in the lower portion of my neck. So what I found to fix that issue is slapping my Razer Freya, my little haptic feedback cushion, onto the chair. And then when I go ahead and sit on it here, it almost fills out that gap. So now I'm pretty much just resting back right on the pillow, and it flows perfectly. So that is a little bit of a stinker. I don't see any other chair really making that any difference because, again, the pillow is fairly thick right there. And whenever you lean back, it hits your shoulder. Again, maybe if you're shorter or something, you won't notice it, but still it's going to be protruding out there and maybe forcing you forward. But for me, it's hitting me into my neck. So that's a bit of a stinker. I wish it was a little bit thinner. Now, before we talk about sound, I want to show you a couple things in Synapse as far as setup and customization. And I know we all know Synapse, but for this device, again, stick through this as I want to show you, again, some setup options and talk about that. And then we'll dive into sound, talk about that, and talk about using it in different setups. So anyways, let's swing over to the PC and talk about the customization of this device. So taking a look at Razer Synapse, you're seeing that I have the Razer Clio and then the Leviathan V2X, which is going to come into play with some of the sound talks and setups we're talking about here. But anyways, let's go on and click on the Clio. Number one, you're looking at sound where you got your custom EQ. This is what I'm using here. And I got mine boosted up a bit because I wanted the back speaker, the rear speaker here, which I'll show you in a surround. I wanted to be a little bit more potent. Now coming down here, just standard volume. You got your Bluetooth, which is that switch button back there. But where it gets really juicy is coming over here to surround. So you can have the Clio set to primary, which is just going to be your stereo, your left and a right back there, which it does sound pretty good like this. I actually used it playing just Switch, like Diablo on it. It was pretty nice. But where it comes to life is when you click on surround. So you're coming over here and you got your front speaker and it's gonna ask you what you want, which mine's set to Realtek Digital, which is actually my SteelSeries speaker setup that you've always seen on my desk. I got the subwoofer down below. We'll talk about that as well. But when you come up to here, then you also can select, say, the Razer Leviathan V2X, which is just the sound bar underneath my speaker. Your rear speaker is the Razer Clio. Now you can monitor them. If you don't want it to really be kind of like the front and the rear, you can just mirror them right here and you get that stereo all around you right there. But again, keep that off and go with more of the surround vibe. Coming down here, you got your volume, standard volume. You can adjust your front and rear speaker volume. And you're thinking this is like just regular volume, but trust me, take the time and dial this in. And it really depends on what you're using. Like for example, when I'm using my SteelSeries one, I like being up around the 90s. When I'm using the Leviathan, I like kind of being down to the 80s a little bit here, as I'll hear a little bit more high pitched. Coming over here to the SteelSeries, they're out to the side, and then I got the woofer underneath. I kind of boost it up a little bit. So truly play with this. Don't just go, oh, I want them both maxed out, go 100 and 100, because you're really not going to get a good vibe. It's not going to be like, okay, you're not really separating each, the front speaker and your rear speaker. So again, truly play with this if you have it. Don't just max them out and say, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be at. Coming over here, equalizer adjustments, you got your front and rear speaker. Again, play with these just as you're playing with the volume over there. I actually boost up my rear speaker again, as you can see here. So I'm getting a good amount of bass out of it here. Honestly, some rumbles here and there, and then my highs, but it's not constant. You're gonna hear it when we talk about the sound. It's not constant. You're definitely getting more sound out of your front speaker than your rear one. Hence the reason you're seeing the different EQs here, boosted up on the rear, a little bit lower on the front. Now you got time alignment. If your front speaker is a little off from your front ones, I never had any issues with this. They were both spot on no matter what setup I was using. SteelSeries speakers or the Razer front speaker, perfectly fine. Never had to adjust this. Now coming over here, this is some of the basic stuff. Power saving, right? Whenever you want to shut off. And then you got demos, which is pretty cool because you can actually fire up this demo and play it as you're adjusting your sound. Your EQs are over here with the demos, right? You got these little adjustments to actually tweak with there, but then you come over here to demo and listen to it. It's pretty cool. Of course, the best thing to do is always be in your game because each game's developed a little different, and tweak these as you go in the game, which is kind of what I did. And then you come over here to whatever other speaker you have and you can tweak that as well if you want. Adjust and dabble in EQ over here. And then again, also with the Clio. Now, kind of watch what you're doing. You don't want to double EQ and really mess with too much stuff on your front. And then you're over here, you're kind of like, what's going on with my sound? So again, kind of dial those in. But again, you can really tweak a lot of your sound within this software for the Clio. So now that we saw the installation and setup and we saw customization into the software, I want to actually load up a game and give you some sound samples. And we're going to do it just as the core speaker alone. We'll do it with the Leviathan. So if you got just a sound bar with no woofer, and then I'll fire it up with some different branded speakers, being the SteelSeries ones with the woofer down there. But again, whenever you're hearing any sort of sound example through a video, number one, you're going through my microphone and then through whatever source you have. So if you're listening on your phone, it's going to sound a little more high pitched, or if you're coming through monitor speakers, right? So again, take that into account. I'll try to explain and talk about it as we're listening to it, but just take into account the source that you're actually listening to it out of. It may be toned down a little bit. But anyways, I'm going to fire up Destiny 2 and we're going to talk about the sound differences. So what you're going to hear first is the Razer Leviathan V2X. So just a sound bar, no subwoofer. And then you're going to also hear the Clio on the back. Now my microphone is sitting right on my shirt, so fairly at ear level. And hopefully you can pick up both of them, but I think you'll mainly pick up more the front speaker. But anyways, I'm going to unmute it here. Again, my front speaker is set to 80, the rear one's set to 100. And hopefully you can decipher the difference here.
Target the most powerful Taken. They're the key to breaking through their defenses.
The Shadow Legion are expecting an air assault in the material plane. You should have the drop on them.
Queen Mara's been invaluable thus far. I'm not sure how these rescue missions would have fared without her portals.
Based on my scouting, we wouldn't have gotten far.
So what you're going to be hearing now are my SteelSeries speakers, the subwoofer down below, and then the rear speakers.
do next?
All things possess within themselves the seeds of their own destruction. So too does the witness. We will follow it, and we will destroy it.
Now, the last sound example I want to give you is going to be using the Clio speaker as a standalone speaker. This will be the only speaker playing. Now, you can do this, say, again, when I'm playing Destiny, I'll turn off all the speakers, use just as the primary, and it does come to life and boost up a little bit. But again, I kind of prefer this setup as that surround bit. But what I'll show you whenever we're doing this as a standalone speaker, I'm going to go right back here, press our source button, and it should go over to Bluetooth. You just heard the little tone in there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it says Razer Clio up on my Switch as well here. And I'm connected just straight up to Bluetooth. I'm gonna go into Diablo here. I'm gonna crank my volume up to 100 and get into a mission and kind of show you like this, because this is honestly how I've really liked this speaker as a solo. I kind of get my chair just twisted back a little bit, just lean back, get on my Switch and start gaming, you know? This is really where I enjoy this as a standalone speaker.
They are the last of all the Lords of Hell.
Do you see that enemy over there?
Still waiting. Need more arcane power.
I'm not sure how loud that is for you guys. I have the Switch cranked up to 100% and it is incredibly loud behind me. You actually like feel some of the bass. Now I am in Bluetooth here and we all know with any Bluetooth device there's a slight delay. Now I'm playing Diablo, it's top down, so I'm not seeing voice acting or lip movement or anything, so you're not going to notice that delay. So again, Mario Kart, Mario, Zelda, any type of like Switch game where you're not really noticing that voice acting, you're going to be perfectly fine with Bluetooth, because even the like slight delay, like my weapons coming through, it's pretty much spot on and you just hear it right back there. So like, I love this when I'm just sitting here or maybe on the couch, or even if I go gaming in the bedroom, I just kind of like take this speaker, I'll take it, set it on top of my pillows back there. And it's almost like this little, you know, 3D speaker back behind my pillow. So versatile and cool to use it again as far as like a mobile sound setup. So my verdict on the Razer Clio is it's incredibly fun. It goes right in line with those other Razer product releases lately, right? Like, I don't know about you all, but I'm tired of every single peripheral for gaming being FPS focused. It's really cool to get fun things. The Razer Freya over here, you know what I mean? Goes right in line with this fun, versatile, different products. And that's exactly what this is. But it is not perfect. The number one thing is I wish it was a little bit thinner here, because as it's hitting me in my neck and I need a little bit of extra cushion there, is a real stinker. So I wish it was a bit thinner. I don't know what all is inside here. I don't know how they could have done that, but that is one thing I would have liked. The other thing is the price point. It comes in at $230. Is that justifiable? How will you utilize it and how often will you take advantage of it? That's for you to decide. But again, I had an absolute blast with the Razer Clio.